Welcome to Pushback. I'm Aaron Maté. August 2nd marked the day when the U.S. formally withdrew from the INF Treaty, a critical Cold War pact that eliminated an entire class of nuclear weapons. And in the days since, there have been dire signs of the dangers that this move poses. Russian President Vladimir Putin responded to the U.S. withdrawal from the INF by warning that his country would start developing new nuclear missiles if the U.S. does so first. Meanwhile, a Trump administration official told CNN that the U.S. military is preparing to test a new non-nuclear mobile launch cruise missile developed specifically to challenge Moscow in Europe. The official said, quote, "Russia cannot maintain military advantage," unquote. China appears to be in the U.S. sights as well. Defense Secretary Mark Esper told reporters that he wants to deploy a conventional ground-based missile in the Asia-Pacific region.
Yes, I would like to, but let's be clear. I'm talking about conventional weapons. Yeah, INF range, right? I don't see an arms race happening. I do see us taking proactive measures to develop a capability that we need for both the European theater and certainly this theater, the Indo-PACOM theater.
In response, China has warned it would not stand idly by if the U.S. deploys ground-based missiles in Asia. Ted Postol is an award-winning professor of science, technology, and national security policy at MIT. Welcome, Professor Postol. A lot to discuss here. What does the U.S. withdrawal from the INF Treaty mean now for global security?
Well, I think this is going to be the cusp or the beginning of a serious degradation in the security of the entire world. The problem is that these particular kinds of weapons are very difficult to detect, and their ranges are such that you can strike really from many distances with them, although the warning time is essentially near zero. So if you have these weapons just distributed all around the world, which is what I think the current administration is aiming at, then you're going to have the potential for very short warning nuclear attacks almost anywhere in the world. And it's going to be very hard to know, at least initially, where these attacks are coming from. That is to say, who executed them. And the net result is you could have severe instabilities given scenarios that could lead to an escalating nuclear war. And it's really hard to believe that anybody would eliminate a class of weapons that are so problematic in terms of undermining global stability with regard to resilience against accidental nuclear war.
You mentioned that these missiles are difficult to detect, and now defense systems are on quick warning. Based on previous very close calls in the past, can you explain just why that makes the threat of a nuclear attack or a nuclear accident so much more dire?
Well, I think most people who think about this possibility, including me, worry most about crises that can happen, which are political events. And in a crisis, what happens is the military forces of the different players will be moved to a higher alert status. Various alert statuses can vary depending on the nature and intensity of the crisis. But under those conditions, forces are poised to take action. And so under those situations, accidents can happen. Unintended launches are more likely, maybe not very likely, but more likely. And misinterpreted events can lead to an action-reaction cycle that nobody knows how to bring under control. Now, in the case of these particular INF weapons, a large number of them are what are called cruise missiles. A cruise missile is it's like a little airplane, and when you launch it, it has a rocket motor on it, which only burns for 10 to 12 seconds, perhaps. And that rocket motor if you think about television videos of cruise missiles being launched from ships at sea, because those are pretty, you see them all, you can't see them on television. You'll notice that the missiles come out, typically are rising in a vertical direction, and then they sort of tip over before they drop a canister that's propelling them, this rocket motor. Now, the flame from that, the exhaust flame from that cruise missile can be seen from space with very advanced sensors. The only country now capable of doing that is the United States. So we do have the ability to see them. We do not have the ability to know where the missile is going, because once the missile's jet engine takes over, the jet engine does not produce nearly enough of a thermal signature to be seen from space. So we might or might not know that missiles are being launched, but we would have no idea where they were going. If you were, let's say, Russian observers and watching things, looking for missile launches on land, you might see missile launches because you might see the bright plume at night of a missile launch. But you would not be able to know anything about where the missile's going once it drops its canisters. So you could have a situation where one or the other side believes that there have been some of these missiles launched, is concerned that they are nuclear armed and heading for one or the other target, and might have a period of tens of minutes or more likely hours, because these missiles would be longer range, hours, wondering what's going to happen next. And if anything happens, you could imagine missiles being launched on a hair trigger situation. So you have this scenario, which is absolutely possible in a period of high tension, and you can see it escalating out of control very quickly, and the result is a catastrophe that would essentially affect the entire northern hemisphere. And the benefit is near zero, because both sides today, without these weapons, have the ability to strike the other at will. So it's not as if things are changing. It's not as if they provide a new strike capability that allows you to do things militarily, if it makes sense, anytime using nuclear weapons. It's not that it gives you that ability to do things that you couldn't otherwise do, but what it does is it creates scenarios that are even more uncertain and more problematic and more escalatory than anything than they would be without these weapons. So I really don't understand why anybody who's thought about this would want to see this brought about.